Hello. Well, I'm going to try to find the link again to post it. I did it yesterday. You would think I would remember from yesterday. Let me just put it in a comment there. And let me see if I can find the link so that I can share with. Let me see. Where did it go? Where's the link to share? Okay, here's the link. Found the link. There we are. All right. Well, I don't know if anybody will be able to jump in this morning or not. It's been quite the week when it comes to the TLC and the conversations and the topics, and even the guests that have appeared. Um, Anyways, where can I start? Well, I guess I can start with the conversation itself. And well, nowadays it is the trend where it is really hard to have a conversation. I know that hikikomori was a thing that started to happen, and that's why it was given a name because it was such a thing. And that started in the 80s in Japan, as far as grown adult people deciding to not do um, the usual gathering, having social interactions, and because they were able to, due to our technology, they were able to stay home and in the room, and mainly is adult males in Japan when this was going on, when some reporters noticed that there was something happening, and we kind of seen those journalistic takes here in the Americas, and it was, yes, usually adult males where they were not having interactions for at least 6 months or greater. That's when someone would get labeled, I guess, as a hikikomori. Um, and when I started seeing those videos, journalistic videos, it's more like these adult people were not even having conversations with their family members. So not even with their parents, they were just in the room, not having any interactions, just living inside their room, I guess, doing work and interactions all via the internet, I suppose. Um, and that was quite something to hear, that they would even be hesitant to have conversations with a family member. I mean, you would think that the only reason why a kid knows how to talk and write is because their parents have helped that come along, right? They had to learn to talk from someone, and you would think that they would be familiar with talking to parents. So, um, I've never lived in Japan. I've never interviewed any of those people that are considered hikikomori. Although in my regular 9 to 5, I do see a lot of people that have been. Well, it's a different label here, I suppose, but one of those that you can find in the DSM-5 is the social phobias, right? The agoraphobia, social anxiety, with panic attacks to go along with that. And well, even if you don't have that extreme, I still, personal experience, I still remember the first time that I was in a college class setting, and it was a required class, so I had to take it. I didn't have an option. And back in those days, we had to do in real life. So they did have some internet classes, but it wasn't the majority. It was just a few classes, but most required classes were not available online. And the class that I'm talking about was communications class, and the first one wasn't that big of a deal. Writing persuasive essays. The second one, I believe, was the shocker to me because I was naive at the time. Uh, I believe was in my early to late 20s, because I did take a break from college because I wasn't ready for it. But anyways, not to digress. In my second communication class, it was the same notion of writing a persuasive essay, and the professor had some highly energized topics that were for sure to create pushback, no matter what side of the fence you were on. So, we had parameters, so it had to be a persuasive essay, and the topics were from a limited pool that the professor gave us, and we had to choose one of those. I forget how many we had. I believe it was less than 10, more like 7, maybe it was 10-ish. So there was some choices limited as they were. And I remember seeing one that just called to me, and I'm like, "Ooh, I like this topic because I would definitely like to research and write an essay on this." And yeah, persuasive to persuade how I see this. Yeah, that was great. And the shocker was, we actually had to present and summarize in a cohesive manner in front of the class. That was because I've never done such a thing. And that was quite a shocker for me to do that, and also to see my peers struggle with oh, what? And to have all eyes on you as you try to stumble your way into your presentation. I understand that some of us were less prepared, more experienced, less prepared, less experienced, but the the body language was kind of the same as far as like a sense of uneasiness. So I do understand this public conversation, debate, and or presenting something could be quite the cause for anxiety, and because of anxiety is something to not desire, as far as activities that, ooh, sign me up, I want to do that again. Now, I understand that everybody's wired a little bit different. There, there's different ways I can explain this phenomena, but I'll summarize the easiest, most shorthand of that. And there is not the Myers Briggs, because there's 16 of those, and I can never keep those in memory as far as distinguishing one from the other. So the one that is easy to remember is the color ones, and this is the one that I've seen in real life by some administrative leader in those mandatory meetings, and every once, I think minimum once a year, or every once to 2 years after COVID, we get together and we separate ourselves into groups depending on how you're wired. And some were reds, some were blues, some were greens, some were yellows, and there were some, because of our specialty in behavior health, it seems like um, because of that, some of us were a little more of combination of, green, yellow, green, blue, red, green, etc. Teo, how's it going? I was just rambling on to see if anybody was around, to see if they wanted to engage in conversation.
Well, I'm a recent subscriber, so I did not know that you've also been doing live streams and having conversations, which is really cool. So excuse me. It's
Well,
quite.
Teo,
I think there is a 24-hour TLC live stream happening now. I just don't know all of the channels because I don't think most people know that you're live, and if they did, there'll be more people on. So I thought I'll jump on and share the link in a Discord to see if anyone
oh,
else wants to
great.
view it.
Well, thank you for that, Teo. And actually, not actually. So I remember the first time, because I was part of that 24-hour, um, the the 24-hour in one. Well, it was nonstop. I have not really partaken in host as the host of live streaming. I remember the first time I did a where it's a pre-recorded and it was a you schedule it, and I was not aware of the internet hygiene of the TLC because I posted it right before I left the house, and then when I came back, like 40 minutes later, I noticed that people were trying to engage with the host, me, selling me. I didn't know, and they were trying to, because when it's pre-scheduled, there's a live chat. Remember, I was a newbie, and in some regards, I'm still a newbie to the TLC, and I that was not the proper thing to do. If you're going to host pre-recorded, some of the chat wants to have some questions, some interactions, and I was off driving around, didn't notice, and I came back and I'm like, my bad.
Yeah, well, you learn by doing, and I think by now I know you're still new to the being the host, but as a live streamer, you're now a vet. I've seen your face enough. You're practically a celebrity, in the TLC world.
But as far as hosting live streams, it is a fairly new phenomena for me. I started just this week. And one
Okay.
of the reasons why I did this is because I noticed that there's some great people that I had brief encounters right before they ended their streams, and I was able to talk to them, and it was great. But it's way early for me because I have mountain time. So right now, just to give you, it's 10-ish in the morning for me. So some
Oh
of these
wow.
streams are
Yeah, the
fairly
stream
early.
have been going on since 10 o'clock my time, so which
Ah,
now it's currently 5 p.m. So
there you are. So I was thinking, there's no one live streaming when I'm available, and I'm thinking like, I wish I'm looking around for channels because the TLC, they're very special people. And as we learn to do this back and forth, it gets better. Because I know I've muddied the waters too, and I've um, made some mistakes in the past, and I've been a little harsh in the past, and I'm learning, and I'm trying not to repeat those mistakes. And now that I'm available, I'm like, oh, and then finally I'm like, well, maybe it's my turn to host
yeah,
when I'm available, so others
you
can
find the
partake.
space, step into it. That sounds good. But I did wanna get you back to deliver on the title of the stream. What did you make of reciprocal optimal intrusion, and how does that relate to breaking a full fall, if at all?
Yes, that's so. Anyways, I just heard that for the first time. I guess it's something that other people have heard. In this from this live stream of from
No,
Luke Thompson.
yeah, I think oh gosh, what's his name? Adam was the one that brought it up,
Yes.
and I think someone else had heard of it. But for the most part, most of us was our first time engaging with it, which is why I kept forgetting the term.
Well, I wrote it down because my memory is not the greatest. So I've like I said, I'm starting to uh, inquire my flaws and where my shortcomings are, so I can do something to help make less of that. So I knew I was going to forget, so I wrote it down, and someone added the reciprocal to it, to the optimal intrusion and the reciprocal. And well, this is my take, and again, it's my point of view, so I could butcher it. Um, Conversation, in a way, is, and now this is going to sound a little way out there in left field, but is our is our attempt to persuade someone into something we value or something we need. I know Verveke says that anticipation of needs, um, and we see it from infancy when the baby's crying. They're introducing their world to our world, and they can't yet communicate. So they're intruding into our world via crying because they have a need, but we don't understand what it is because that they don't know language yet. And as an adult, we still do the same thing when we need a favor or when we need boundaries. Like, don't enter the house when your shoes are muddy. If you don't mind taking them off if they're muddy, or in Eastern cultures, they actually want you to take your shoes off, full stop, before entering. I know as an Mexican American, I don't have that culture. Some do, some don't. So I'm like, eh. But if I know, I learned from my wife, if I have mud on my shoes, I best take off my shoes from the get go. So this intrusion of that's reciprocal when it comes to language, whether we know it or not, when we talk to someone, it is in a way we're intruding into somebody's world via language to to let them know what our desired needs are, or what oh, I want to, can we watch a movie at etc. The same thing is like, I would like to have lunch with you, etc. So those are, or when someone's breaking your boundaries, oh, can you please take off your muddy shoes before entering. All those are, they're they don't sound, I mean, because the word intrusion sounds harsh, but in a way, it's an attempt for us to persuade someone into what we, like I said, it goes back to the what we value, what we need, and then somewhere in between.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think you're exactly right. That just communication in and of itself is an intrusive activity to engage in, because if you're having a conversation, there's a giving and taking that's expected to happen, and there's no getting away from that tension, whichever way you want to sugarcoat how that plays out. Because at some point you're gonna want to either give me something that I don't want, or I'm gonna want to give you something that you don't want, or you think there's something better that you've got to offer and I disagree, and we do the dance again.
Yeah, and that's actually the part of the problem with communication is that we never get we never get handed down an etiquette class of what is to be expected, how to communicate best, how to be specific. I've mentioned the concept of theory in mind that I learned when I was reading some of those textbooks as far as psychology and abnormal psychology, um, and I do believe that we have a hard time because we were never really introduced into how to best do it, because we often, what I've experienced in my personal life is we do tend to talk past one another. I just want to push my opinions on somebody else. Someone's trying to persuade me into their dogma, um, and it's easy to let emotions get out of control, because again, one of those courses that we don't take is how to sit well with uncomfortable emotions, how to sit well with boredom, how to sit well with frustration, how to sit well with feedback. I don't think we've, I mean, when I went to high school, I graduated high school and I never really received any of that. But does that mean that is the teachers the ones that are going to raise me and teach me proper etiquette? And then it's like, oh yeah, but I have parents. But my experience is only limited to those parents that I had. The world has, every person that's alive, by the billions, they all had different parents. So what do I know what other people experience? So that's where my theory of mine is so narrow, because I don't relate to the other, because I see them through my filter as my parents didn't teach me or my parents taught me, and ergo I expect everybody to be like me in a way which is way off.
Yeah, it's like I said, I do think it's a dance, because we all come with different contexts and have different skill level of conversation. In- Yeah, it's rare to that you're under speaking or conversing with someone that's equally skilled in conversation as you are. So we all have to make uh, compromises on that front. But I don't know. I've done a lot of talking today, so I don't want to talk out of my mind. But it is nice to come on and make my first appearance on your stream. It's nice that more people are doing it, and
Well,
hopefully
thank you, Teo.
carries on. I do have to get to the Breakwater Festival, which is happening
Uh,
literally started 20
well,
minutes
right
ago.
now? Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
well, it's today's like a meetup, just casual. Tomorrow it starts properly, and then Sunday as well.
Nice. Well, thank you for taking the dive and taking a chance. Because, like I said, every time you join a conversation, I think it's you hope that people are going to be um, open and not harsh, and
Reciprocal,
it's
yeah,
something that I had to learn because it took me a bit to get it.
yeah. At least you're conscious enough. I think you said something earlier about trying to find out where your faults are and work on them. That sounds like the optimal way of being. So I'll give you credit for that, my friend, and God bless.
Oh, thank you, Teo. All right. Well, I guess there is some stuff happening on TLC, and that's good because things. And this is part of being in the flotilla, and but that is happening over in Europe. I don't know if they are doing live streams. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not. But I will keep on the monologue a little bit longer in case anybody else uh, clicks on the link. There was okay. So Teo mentioned the description on the title. So, appearance versus application versus personal experience. This is something that I'm learning as far as when I start hearing these concepts from other people on YouTube. And most of the time, I'm not around to catch it live, but I do try to understand what it is that they're trying to say because I think that there is. I think Luke said it today. Um, we do have to be active listeners to try to understand a person instead of just trying to hear something so that we can pounce back with our rebuttal and active listening. So appearance is something that is becoming something as far as audience capture by prominent influencers. Where I remember back before um, the internet, before before the smartphones, before YouTube, before Netflix, all that kind of good stuff. We, when you were hanging out with your friends, by and large, especially if they were your group, um, you there was not a lot of performance. At least in my experience, it was we you could be yourself. You didn't, there was every now and then. I guess when we were in a social place, some people, because they were more on the yellow, the extroverted, they're where they get energized via um, other people being in the mix, and maybe then I would see uh, some performance as far as the appearance, as far as um, felicity, and it was, you can even consider that as the class clown before the age of the internet. And now some of the prominent YouTubers, they because of they're making a living from the streams, and they find out quickly that certain performances, certain conversations, certain topics get a lot more clicks. They get shared. They'll get a lot of comments, whether it's rage bait or not. And before you know it, they have audience capture. And if they try to do something that is more their thing and more genuine, they don't get no clicks. It just kind of collects dust, and they're like, "Ooh, I can't make a living by by having this type of conversation or this type of um, I don't want to call it performance, because if they're being genuine, they're no longer performing. But anyways, that's the my take on as far as the appearance, or maybe it's niceties when you are going on a first date. If I remember going on first dates, it was you put on your best face, you dressed well, and you're very polite, and maybe you hold back and you don't really give your opinion, and you don't mention those three thou shall not, or sorry, should, or maybe the things that are really you shouldn't talk as in a first date or in a family get-togethers, and that is, don't mention religion, don't mention politics, and don't mention, what's the third one? Religion, politics. I forget what the other one is, but so being polite with a stranger or on a date, you're no longer being genuine because you're trying to make a first impression, so you're trying to be at your best, and maybe you don't say what you want to say, you don't push back, and you don't say, well, I don't know if that's the best idea to pursue that. I don't know if that's or even the what do you call it? The one with it's that's not even a thing. More like where should we eat? And then there's like four recommended restaurants. Well, I prefer to go here, 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 here. And you're like, oh, none of those four restaurants, they're not my thing. Now, on a first date or with the new, where you maybe a new coworker that it just invites you to, so maybe you move to a new town and you're trying to make friends. So you're like, do you say like, yeah, I don't really like any of those four. How about this, or that? Sometimes when we are trying to make first impressions, we're not really ourselves. Maybe that's where the appearance comes in, is where we're polite. And only when we're comfortable, we can actually be ourselves and be like, well, actually, this is my favorite restaurant. And even though this restaurant has good reputation, just my taste buds don't like it. It's just not my thing. Or maybe it's a experience from childhood, like, actually, application, appearance versus application. Now, application has nothing to do with more, is it not useful? And sometimes, okay, so the way I parse this out is from the four personality types, generalized, the red, the blue, the green, the yellow, um, and the Myers-Briggs. There are some people that are calibrated to want to keep um, the comfort level at a reasonable level, or at a very nice level when it comes to the other, and they try to keep that the um, what's a short phrase, people pleasing, in a way where they will do a wrong just to not upset somebody. They will do something, or they will say something, or back up a position that they normally wouldn't, because they don't want tension. They want the group to stay cohesive. They don't want to, oh, we don't need a debate. We don't want conflict. And so sometimes the application is like, does it work? Does it not work? And it has nothing to do whether that person um, likes that or not. Um, that's where people might get upset, because um, we're doing this because the engine is broke, and we need to do, and these are the steps required, and these are the things that need to be replaced so the engine can work, because the problem is the engine doesn't work. And in the process of, some people might have different opinions and recommend, like, well, do we really need the engine to work? Sure, we can walk 100 miles and it'll be inconvenient, but um, not everybody enjoys engineering, so can we not fix the engine? And that's where the application can bump heads when someone tries to avoid whether that thing works or not because of people pleasing, because well, I don't want to offend anybody that likes engineering, so that dislikes engineering, or I don't want anybody to have a sense of hierarchy because they're now an expert in this in engineering, in to fix the engine. And so we don't want to have a hierarchy here. We want everybody to be equal. And it's like, we just want to fix the engine. The engine is broke. I don't like walking 100 miles in the elements. So that's, again, appearance is one thing, performance maybe, audience capture, propheticity, simulacra. Application sometimes gets in the way when um, the subject or the thing that needs to be fixed might offend other people that are not good at fixing that, and we're like, well, you're offending me now by becoming technical and by knowing that, and somehow you're going to be more influential. We don't like influence here, and we want everybody to be equally equal, and we don't like. Anyways, that's a hypothetical scenario where the application might get in the way of people's feelings. So it's not like fixing the engine is a moral thing. There's no right or wrong when it comes to moral or ethics. It's just, can we fix the engine or not? We like to we use the car. The vehicle is a great technology, and but anyways, and then the personal experience every now and then, and I think it goes to the theory of mind, where okay, so let's narrow it down to the states. There's 350 million. Not everyone is an adult, so let's just say 100 million adults, and we all have an opinion, and it doesn't matter what it is. Pick a topic. We all think we're right, and we all think this is the best way to do that, and this is this is the best approach. This is the best procedure. This is the best way to talk about it. This is the best way to go about it. And what if out of 100 million, there's 4 sets of 25 million? So 4 groups of contradicting ideas, and 4 is not even realistic. There's probably a lot more than just 4 overall. But just to keep the math simple and the conversation going, the monologue here, 4 different groups, contradictory, or maybe 16 groups. Yeah, let's go with 16. 16 groups that swear up and down that they are correct and the other 15 are incorrect. And they can't all be correct and they can't all be incorrect. So what's the deal? And some of that is because they are seeing it through their filter based on their experience. And could be that some are more right or others. And sometimes it's about, which section are you right about? Are you right about the procedure? Are you right about the application? Are you right about the participatory, the group? Are you right about the proposition? Right, the Vervaekian, and as far as advanced anticipation of the desired need or whatnot. But maybe that personal experiences where, well, maybe we're right, but we don't know what we're right about. And maybe we're wrong, but we don't know what we're wrong about. I mean, so in a sense, we're partly right, partly wrong. But it looks like Claire, you dropped a comment. Let me see. Sorry, I'm trying to read. There's a little thing in between my. Let's see. What does it say? Squared up. Since it was just on Jacob's stream. Yeah, I saw the interaction this morning between because Luke Thompson, because the stream from yesterday, Jacob was hosting. That's when Ortland made an appearance, and on Luke's live stream this morning, Jacob engaged, and I noticed that Jacob mentioned that he doesn't consider himself part of the TLC, so he's a little bit separate. And he was starting to say something, and Luke kind of took him off. Is that what you meant by, or is it something that I missed, Claire? And let me see if I can find the stream, the link again. I forgot where I found it, but I think I remember where. Okay. Let me share. I don't know if this is visible or not, so let me share the link in case you want to join, Claire. Or maybe she. Oh, sorry. Maybe you meant like they're kind of have difference of opinion and different, and they're kind of voicing their opinion, and they're opposite ends of what the conversation was yesterday. And because I know that everybody had a different opinion as far as how that how they handled this surprising guest yesterday to the Jacob stream. All right. Well, let's see. I'm trying to monologue here, but let me pull up to see what was in the thumbnail. Reality monitoring versus hallway monitoring. Well, I guess this hallway monitoring is something that's been something new, and I think when PVK is mentioning this, he is referring to the ortho bros, where they're deciding, they are the ultimate authority, and they decide who's in, who's not, and they are the gatekeepers of who can have access to Christ, who can have access to the Scripture, who can have access to the Holy Spirit. And we have one mediator, and they might have a different opinion of who that mediator is. But anyways, this is my opinion. I could be wrong. I've been wrong in the past. Reality monitoring is something completely, entirely different. And this is another opinion-based thing where when I started working in a lockdown psych ward years back, there was this medical jargon that I was vaguely familiar with, and these therapies that was not new to, that I wasn't aware of, and I was introduced to a different world, and all of a sudden I started hearing this this word, reality testing, and it took me a bit to understand what that means. And my opinion is that I still are trying to hone in on the reality of all realities, and there's still some stuff that I cannot see because it was way out there in my periphery, where I just cannot see it, or it might be in on my blind spot somewhere. And sometimes some people reveal it to me, and once they're able to to make it visible, I can see it. So I know that I'm still not all the way there when it comes to reality testing. And and mainly I think part of that is that theory of mind where everything that I know is limited to that, just whatever I've been introduced in the books I read and the shows I watched and the conversations I've had. So I'm very limited in comparison to people that have read more books, have more education than me, have been traveling, had productive conversations with different cultures and different dogmas, etc. And they have a different sense of reality. And then the big philosophers of old, especially the more of the religious type, like the ones you find in Christianity and in Judaism and Buddhism and etc. Um, some of those realities we may not be aware of. So when it comes to reality testing, it's something that it took me a bit to understand what the psychiatrist was meaning by that, where someone has poor reality testing versus moderate reality testing, right? Whether they have good insight, bad insight into the situation. And not only that, we also get specialized training, and part of that specialized training is in de-escalating, uh, and we get OSHA training. I don't know, if, not OSHA training, MOAB training is what they call it, and that is when so in healthcare, most people are familiar with a code blue, right? Someone's having a heart attack of some sort, or going into cardiac arrest, or someone. Um, but most people shy away from a code gray, because an that's kind of an aggressive person, family member, patient, or whatnot. And some people, so we are the ones that run towards it, not try to get cover from the situation. So we have to have special training as far as how to handle that type of, I guess you can call it crisis management, um, hostile environment, and the more of those you do, the more code grays, the more of those that you partake in, and you well, I guess it's a skill set. I guess you acquire a different. It becomes it becomes normal and routine, if that could be a thing. I suppose that the fireman, after a while, going into a burning building, considers that routine, part of the 9 to 5. Same with the paramedics and with the police officer. Um, yeah, the crisis management team is, again, if you do it long enough, does it become routine? Should it be routine? What we also do, as far as the management is they always do a debriefing, and when the event is pretty drastic, they even send more professionals our way. We have we have from psychologists to chapels to other in leadership that come over and help us deal with the events if they're pretty hairy, if they're pretty significant. Um, that way we can, because burnout is a real thing, and to to minimize the psychological, emotional, physical injury. I don't know, the physical injuries less so, but the other injuries that might happen from such eventful events. But I'm starting to feel like I'm digressing from what I had mentioned in the description. So being a builder versus being a destroyer. And I guess the question would be, do we even know if we are to do a diagnostic internal reflection where we're trying to um, see where we're at and we're trying to calibrate our sense of self. And if we do, would we even know prior to that, before we label ourselves as a builder versus a destroyer, or maybe somewhere in between, do we even know that we are that? That am I a builder? Am I a destroyer? As a metaphor, as far as personality, as far as my everyday ordeal. And when it comes to that, I don't know if we would how we, if we would really be able to know which it, where we are if we begin to inquire within. And one of the things that I found out is that, again, when it comes to individuality and how people are wired differently, um, most people have some sort of optimism or pessimism. And the question is not whether you have it or not. The question is more like, how much of it do you have? Do you have 10% optimism and 80% pessimism and 10% in between, kind of like, or is it specifically with certain situations, certain topics, certain people, certain environments? Again, sometimes the difficult part is, if we're building, in what sense are we building? If we're destroying, in what sense are we destroying? Is it in the um, in the procedural aspect that we are building or destroying? Is it in the participatory that we're building or destroying? Is it in the perception, as far as the ideas, the concept of dogma? Is that where we, in which aspect? Because I think sometimes, if I may dare say, are we good at something? Um, not, I don't. Could you be a jack of all trades and a master of none? Could be a master of everything? Probably not, right? 10,000 hours, they say, to have mastery over something. There's just not enough free time to master 100 different things. So if we're good at, do we know what we're good at? Do we know what we're bad at? Um, when or how so? Again, those are some broad questions because I don't know if I, but at least to put the question out there, at least to inquire and begin the process of reflection, of looking or trying to find, um, to have the compass, to try to find some direction, to try to find purpose. And again, if it's the quality of purpose, what is the better choice? What is the better destination? Um, you know, um, there's good consequences, bad consequences to every choice we make. Everything's a trade-off. So, do we know what we're good at? Do we know what we're bad at? Do we know if we are builders? Do we know if we're destroyers? And if so, do we know in which sense are we building? Which process? Which section? I think I mentioned once that some people, we have narrow, if I may say that, that's an opinion, narrow way of seeing things as far as what is considered successful. And sometimes most, or seems, at least Hollywood will have me think that to be successful, you have to be really wealthy. or else you're not really successful. Or to be successful, you have to be really, really popular, such as an actor, right? Well liked. Um, Whether your morals are like, it doesn't matter as long as you're very popular, like an actor that's, you see their life and they're like, whoa, they crashed and burned for the seventh time, but they're still admired and adored by most. So, what is success? And sometimes what we're successful in one regard, we might be way off, completely off the rails in another regard. So, I guess it depends what we mean by success. Successful at what? Good at what? So, what else is in my description? Um, Wisdom, famine. Um, yeah, hmm, that's I don't know. I think I rambled long enough. I don't know if I want to get into the wisdom famine, because first it would have to imply that I know what wisdom is to try to think that we have a famine of. But maybe this notion popped into my head because of what's been happening in the last decade or so, where we have this performance due to propheticity and also cancellations, where only certain conversations, certain way of seeing are allowed by the institutions, and some are not, and where you can't even have an experiment to see if a certain notion is correct or not. It's like, nope, you can't have you can't have the conversation. You cannot yield the experiment. We don't like the findings. We will tell you what the findings are, and you are not allowed to ask or inquire. You just have to trust the institution, and you have no way of knowing for yourself because you're just feeble and unlearned, and you are a commoner. And if from old languages, you're a peasant, so you're not allowed. You're not allowed to have to be to have a say so in the conversation or to even question um, whatever the institution says is. So, I mean, cancel culture was a thing not too long ago, and some of the, the the term absurdity kept populating left and right, and for good reason. As far as the absurdity, um, I think the term that I heard a lot in the last 10 years was clown culture, which is, and they didn't mean the circus type. Um, and I think that is more because of the audience capture and the prolificity. I think that's what they meant by clown culture. So, are we in the middle of wisdom famine? Maybe, maybe it's just my opinion that is off base. And anyways, what do you guys think about the Donald Davidson quote? And I was introduced to Donald Davidson, and I haven't quite um, dove into his work, but I was introduced by this person that has been interviewed by PVK, I think at least 3 times. His handle is Vocal Distance, and I really enjoyed. Um, I know some people didn't like the fact that he was quoting a lot of people and he was introducing a lot of books, and some people didn't like that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that he had a lot of um, reference points, and if you wanted to inquire and maybe give pushback to what he was saying, he at least showed you where you can look if you wanted to look for yourself. At least he gave that. That was good. But anyways, um, I I recently rewatched the video, one of those videos, and the other book that he threw out there, and PVK has mentioned this many a times, and it's in my queue, my Audible queue, and I'm gonna give it a go here shortly. Hope God willing, hopefully, is Velvet Elvis. And again, this is pre deconstruction, the anyways, all that stuff. And just so that I can um, relive the what did we just go through and where did some of these notions come from, et cetera, et cetera. Um, well, I think I've been on here for a little bit. I was going to say for an hour, but we're 5 minutes into an hour, so I think I will close this up in about 5 minutes. I've been new to hosting live streams. I have only a few subscribers, so I understand that not too many people will see me live, and or there's a learning curve to having conversation in a TLC. And sometimes when I first came in, I didn't know what I was doing, and I got to admit I was acting very tribal. But thanks to some of you, you allowed me to see how that's not a good approach, and I I'm trying to better that. I don't want to repeat the same mistakes over and over. I'm glad somebody had the courage to point that out. I'm glad, like I said, when someone tells me, reveals to me what they can see, and it's in my blind spot, I really I am grateful, and I do seeing more that has been oblivious to me. So I got 3 minutes left. What can I say? Well, I look forward to joining the conversation with some of you, with most of you. I do have limited free time, gaps of free time here and there, and sometimes even when I do have free time, I don't have the ability to uh, do the break the fourth wall. So maybe sometimes I just say a comment in the chat. And also, one of the things that's kind of frustrating in a way for me is that I don't quite have full control of my schedule. I'm very limited as far as what days I have off, and most often than not, they don't have a pattern to it, so I can't even predict. Hard for me to plan certain things into the future. However, they do populate a schedule that's like 6 weeks out, and sometimes they're kind of lagging. Sometimes it's only 4 weeks out, and so at least it gives me a little bit of as far as scheduling some things. But anyways, we are really close to the minute mark, so reciprocal optimal intrusion. What a phrase, and what does that mean? So it was really this notion was introduced today, and I think I'm going to chew on that a little bit. And anyways, is a conversation intrusive in some way, shape, or form? Because in a way we want people to see our perspective. We want people to see why we prefer this over that, right? What it is about this restaurant that I like. What is it about this restaurant that I don't like? As far as minor things, I know that there's some significant issues when it comes to anthropology, psychology, and religiosity, if I might say that word. Political gambit, don't even shoot right. Just say a phrase and the claws come out. So, but by and large, is any conversation an intrusion in some sorts? Because we do want others to see where we're coming from. I mean, that's a question. I don't. I'm not implying that I know if I'm anywhere near the vicinity of understanding what it is. But anyways, new term. Just like when I first heard the word propheticity from this book that I ran into, which was worthwhile, and to understand what it is, and also the simulacra, um, and what it is, and how, well, to quote McLuhan, this technology is changing us. We're changing technology, and in turn, it changes us. So, doing the dance, so we don't step on each other's toes, especially when the rhythm changes and the the, the beat changes, and we try not to step on one another as we try to do this dance of conversation in the TLC. That's the minute mark. All right. Well, I think I will leave it there. Hopefully, I catch you on your stream, or in another host's stream, or maybe in the future you might um, be bold enough to join and see if you can do the dance with someone like the likes of me. All right, TLC, until next time, my handle is still somewhat de sol a sol, Malax Luna. Till next time.